person I want, and Lions, we'll probably talk about Lions lots, whatever, but Sean Edwards, 250th game as a coach in international rugby, his sixth championship, the most coach in Six Nations history. To do it for two countries, to do it in France, particularly where that culture of defence was never there. I think he should be the Lions defence coach. I know New Zealand have a tour. Sorry, France have a tour at New Zealand where, to be fair, some of the players will be missing. I think Galtier would release him. He said at the start of Six Nations he'd swim to Australia if he was allowed. I think it'd be great to see him back. He was a former British and Irish Lions coach. Obviously, Gatland snubbed him for Andy Farrell. Obviously, they're former teammates. But in terms of CV and credibility, in terms of what he's won, and to be fair, any player any player who's ever played under him would die for him. I'd love to see him being rewarded for that. That's the only, I'd rather talk about him today than captaincy or the other coaches, but I think he's put his foot forward. I know that Farrell wanted to wait till after the Six Nations to see who were playing well and what coaches were coaching well. Well, I think his body of work, this Six Nations, makes a very compelling argument.
It really does. That's kind of the other part of the Lions agenda I wanted to touch upon with you lads before we go today, was just some of the reporting during the week, which suggests that it'll be quite an Irish heavy coaching ticket. I mean, Simon Easterby sounds like he thinks he's probably going, and you'd imagine he'd be in charge of defence. There's some talk of Johnny Sexton being in contention for attack coach as well. Listen, I think Johnny Sexton would probably do a brilliant job of that, but the external perception of that, and I mean external to Ireland actually, would be probably negative, because he's clearly an unproven coach, officially speaking, and there are other guys within the competition who you could argue have done a better job with their attacks than Ireland have, So, Birch, do you think it would be
Look, I think Faz will do what he wants, and he has the total right to that, because he'll have to live or die by the results. But of what we already know, David Nucifora, he's an Australian, but certainly he's Irish-ified in terms of his time in Irish rugby. I know he's done a bit of associate with Scotland. He's on the management team. Vinnie Hammond, chief analyst, Irish. Alan Waters, obviously lots of different boxes ticked for him, but he's with the Irish team at the moment. So I think Farrell already has called in 4 Irish, you know what I mean, including himself, whatever. So I think it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to go as many Irish as maybe he might have wanted in January, given just the way the whole thing has gone. And then playing wise as well, I think, look, his ability to communicate and get players on side is beyond doubt. But if he has to leave some frontline Irish players behind, I know Gatland struggled with that the second time he did it. Players found it very hard to forgive him, the fact that he was telling them that to go out and outplay Conor Murray when, 6 months before that he had picked Conor Murray ahead of that player. So that's it's a very tricky one to manage, being Lions coach, I think, and going back to a country. And yeah, like John Fogarty is rumored to be on the ticket. There's lots of talk about Irish coaches, no talk about anybody else, and maybe it's a massive smoke screen. And I totally understand his right to pick whoever he wants to be part of his team. He had that, but I just think it obviously will put big pressure on if it's very, very Irish, and also the players haven't helped him because to do that you needed to be dominant in the Six Nations, I think. So it's made it harder for him, but he's a man of a very strong character, and he'll do it the way he wants. But certainly it's going to be complicated, I think. Not complicated. It's just going to create a lot of probably chat.
Columns.
Yeah, exactly.
Mur, I'm curious just what you would make of it if, say, it was an exclusively or almost exclusively Ireland coaching ticket, just because it kind of, to me, would go against the spirit of the Lions a little bit. It just takes a little bit of the fun away, I think, when you know that it's already a coherent coaching ticket that aren't having to learn on the job how to operate alongside each other to some extent.
I'd be surprised if it is exclusively. There will be a big Irish influence, absolutely, on the tour, as Birch has alluded to, is already happening. But he gets the Lions as well. He really does. It's massive for him. obviously it's a good job. It's a nice job to get, but he seems to genuinely buy into the concept of what it is and representing the four different nations. So I'd be surprised if that's not the case. And also with the squad now, it looks like it's going to be much easier for him to make those decisions. I never really bought into he's going to have awkward conversations with people. He's a very strong character. If an Irish player isn't up to the level of someone else, I think he'll be well able to handle that chat. And it's funny, like, what, a year ago, where people were actually calling, will we even go ahead with this Lions tour? So in fairness to us, I think we said, let's just wait and see what Joe Schmidt does with the Wallabies. But now it's kind of swung the other way, and people are thinking, the Irish players have lost a bit of form, and Wales are gone out of it. So it's going to be a much more even series. I think it is going to be a cracking series. I think there is going to be plenty of Irish players in the final squad, because he and any other coach would recognize that there are classy players in that Ireland squad who've got great bodies of work behind them long term, regardless of what happened against France or Italy in those last two games. So I think he'll have plenty of familiar faces with him, but I think there'll be a good blend to it, and that's only right as well. I totally agree with you. It's in the spirit of the whole thing, and it engages everyone, and that's an important part of it as well.
Just on that, sorry. When Faz got the job, I thought it was amazing. I thought it was a really good thing, because one, he gets a break from Ireland, okay, and he gets a chance to freshen up, and then two, I felt he's going to pick up a lot from some of the other coaches that he brings in. Whether it's Borthwick doing the line out, or Steve Tandy doing the defence, or Sean Edwards doing the defence, or Sam Vesty as a bit of a wild card, to do the attack, who's obviously not coach international level, but is really highly regarded. And if he takes all the Irish coaching staff, obviously that's not going to be as it won't be relevant at all. And obviously he'll pick up stuff from Marcus Smith or Toje, etc. And then the other thing is, I think we probably could do with having some people stay to look after this tour. To be honest, you know what I mean? Like we have to keep our eyes on the prize here, and I don't think this Six Nations is a disaster, even though I've said it. But we have to try and fix the things that haven't worked, and find new talent. So like a tour to Georgia or Portugal with a barbarian style coaching staff, like that's not high performance either. There's no alignment there, or cohesion. So it's just, and look at a better man to manage it. But they'd be the concerns I would have today if it was all Irish coaching staff, of what happens to the fellas who are playing to show that they can play in November against the All Blacks.
Yeah.
Particularly, that's why the Easterby thing, his name coming up, shocked me, because they have already announced that he will. When they announced him as the interim head coach, they said he'll lead the tour.
I'm the same, Murray.
So if you're down, if he did go, you'd be down to your third choice head coach, which it is shocking if that is the case to me. Honestly, I would just be very surprised at that. People who have never liked the Lions tour now are probably thinking this is exactly what I said would happen. The RFU support it because they're a member of the Lions. They make money from it. It's a big money making venture for them and the other unions. So of course they're going to support it. The players find it a massive honor, and it's lucrative for them as well. So they're fully invested in it totally. But you're right to raise that point, Birch. You can't but say that it has been damaging for Ireland that their head coach isn't there. Like, it's just common sense. Of course, that's the case. But if it's also going to affect this summer tour, even though it's a bit lower profile, that's damaging for the long-term project, because this is an important summer now. You are now moving into, I don't like getting into World Cup chat too early, but you are moving into that project now.
Yeah, just on that, I think my understanding of where I read this was the Telegraph, which, but it seemed a bit clickbaity, really. I felt, I don't know if there's genuine substance to the fact that many Irish were going as part of his management team, and obviously that would, Paul O'Connell then would, if Simon went, Paul O'Connell would become you'd imagine the head coach for the summer tour, and there would be continuity there. But I didn't suspect that Simon will be going, and I'm still not sure really if there's actually any substance to that.
Yeah, I guess so O'Connell would take charge of Ireland's summer tour theoretically, unless he was also in Australia, which would also kind of make sense from Farrell's point of view. In which case, maybe, do you was that the idea perhaps in bringing in Mike Prendergast to coach the Ireland A team recently? potentially to, well, you'd imagine he's going to have a pretty prominent role in the summer tour either way, I'd suggest. Like, Jesus, poor old Michael Bradley should cancel his summer holiday with the family. You know, we could be, you could be getting a phone call. Bert, I know you said you didn't necessarily want to have this conversation, but I'm curious because I asked the other two lads, who do you think will be the captain of the Lions this summer?
I think Maro. I think there's an argument there. It's a lot for Doris having never been a Lion before. Yeah, I think Maro he's guaranteed to start. I'm not saying Doris isn't guaranteed to start, but I think Maro's clearly like at that level for a long time. And I have no issue with him. I think I think Ireland probably had to have really good Six Nations. I don't blame him. It's interesting his relationship with referees. I find him very polite to referees, but he's just not really getting the rub of the green there. I think Maro's in a good position, particularly if you're going to be all Irish coaching staff and a lot of Irish players. Having an Irish captain as well is a big ask. You know, an Irish captain hasn't been a Lion. You know.
Yeah. You're right as well. Doris had a fine championship. Even against France, he was probably Ireland's only like 7.5 out of 10. Do you think that would have changed in the last? Before we go, do you think that would have changed in the last fortnight, Birch? Like, do you think Doris might have been in pole position after, say, round 3?
No, I think going into the competition, if you looked at him, asked most people, they would have said Doris is nailed on. Like, his form is so good. He's the captain of Ireland. Ireland were probably leading the way. I told you he wasn't captain, you know, of England. It's just kind of the way it's all finished, and I told you his form is just outstanding. And as I said, the fact he's been a Lions tourist before, and the legacy of that and understanding. Like I spoke to some people when Sam Warburton was made Lions captain by Gatland. Now, fairness, he leaned on likes of Paulie and stuff and others, but I don't think you need just give it to Toje, and that looks after itself.